Diane described Milena as a tireless advocate, and with that I would also add mentor and leader, which applies to so many of you, if not all of you, in the room. And there's something, I think, that keeps tireless advocates going, Mike, and you know this as much as everyone else. And I do believe that that's hope. And it's a hope that the tides can turn. It's been a rocky, challenging, and difficult time in many of our communities, our countries, and indeed in Europe in recent years. However, despite that, there are so many things going on. And Milena, one of the things you mentioned was Egypt and El Maurad, who are now in Lebanon. Curiously, even this year, after all of our partners in Egypt had to close, had to move with this shrinking space for civil society, we had a call for ideas from across the broader Europe. Within the idea call we had this year under the banner of moving communities, and the highest number of applications came from Egypt, which was astounding, higher than Germany and the UK, where applications usually come from. So I can only feel that the culture as being the way, a doorway that opens possibilities and presents possibilities rather than shutting doors and discussing impossibility, is why all of you are here, and people have continued to work as consistently and with such passion and vigor as they have. So thank you so much again, Dea, and to all of you for being here and having contributed. It really has been wonderful to be a partner on the conference. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I will speak here not as a committed participant of this conference, because that would be a lie, as my position with the European Capital of Culture cannot let me spend wonderful days in debates during the whole day, so I was speaking every now and then, and I wouldn't dare, of course, to give any such a conclusion. I will firstly say how happy I am personally that we finally have this conference. I remember I was still at the board in Kultura Nova Foundation when Dea came with the project, and when project won in a competition with UNESCO. And I was in particularly happy and professionally, because the issue of participatory management became obviously also an issue that is of greater interest than it was at that time at a European or world level. For me, I can only tell you shortly how we see this issue of participation with Rijeka 2020 as a European Capital of Culture, and I will try to be frank and without so much PRing about it, right? There are different levels, and there is always a danger to be, how to say, a totalitarian about participation. Not everything can be done through participative processes of everyone. I would support very much, I think Milena just said it, that we have to be clear that maybe some processes shouldn't be open really to everyone, but because there is a particular knowledge or experience or even interest that you need in order to engage. When I hear that all the processes, political, financial, legislative, whatever, should be open to all the citizens, I'm usually quite doubtful about that. And in my life, the experience is that this usually is manipulation. And we should be quite afraid of it. Regarding European Capital of Culture, for us, not for the sake of participation, but for the sake of legacy of this project, we are really trying to build different kinds of levels and ways of participation. Before that, for us, it is extremely important to work on a principle of continuation of of continuity what already exists on the ground. So we don't come with big pile of money with lots of our European and world friends and just impose locally what we think it's really great and sexy. Second thing is that we are trying to build our organizational structure through maybe rhizomatic, or I don't know which is the sexiest term, but network of partnerships, real partnerships, in which we are trying to involve local institutions, local organizations, international partners, and so on and so further, as really equal partners with responsibilities and the decision-making powers, with a clear structure where the decision-making, how the decision-making will be happening. And the third way is, of course, participation of citizens. For us, within the theme, and this is the second thing, we also have to put it publicly, I often see in cultural sector this attitude that there are citizens who are just waiting for us to open our big doors of our nice institutions and everyone will gonna come. They're just waiting there. True to say, most of them don't care that much. So I think for us this is a great opportunity to try to find the ways, not just to open up, this is not enough, not just the access to culture, but to see with the different groups of citizens what are their interests. We are trying to to give opportunity, to give a framework for people who want to get self-organized, to self-organize, and to work with us in a different levels of partnership. And then again, we shouldn't forget also that European Capitals of Culture and similar projects cannot only be the participatory project, however fashionable this might be, but they are by their construct also a project of cultural representation, spectacle, and all that we want, because they need a European visibility. They're not local development projects, they're also that. So for us, just final words, there have been several people from our team present at the conference. I'm sure this will be a great learning experience, and this conference will give us a lot of ideas how to continue and how to work better with the different challenges we are facing. Thank you very much for that.
Well, from IFACCA's perspective, we're working very much in a world where we want arts and culture to thrive and to be recognized both by governments and, crucially, people for their contribution to society. So in doing so, we definitely advocate a stronger dialogue with all sectors of the community, not just with the arts sector, but with civil society as well. We believe that creating a dialogue is important, not just with the policymakers, the people who are providing the spaces and the resources for creation to happen, those that are creating, those that are experiencing the creations, and those that are responding to the creations. It's so important. It seems that this process is still stumbling along, and we've a long way to go. So conferences like this one that kind of raise the questions. By asking the questions very often, you get people to reevaluate and rethink what they're doing and how they're doing that, and whether they're advocating enough for participatory processes. I think the formation, from IFACCA's perspective, when we came in here, we wanted to really put forward that this is often about cultural context. So, I was just thinking about the Pacific as a different cultural context, again, that we haven't heard from in this space, where the resources are so little or just simply non-existent that the process is participatory by nature, in fact, because nothing would get done without a very strong involvement of both civil society, artists, and government. It just wouldn't happen. So the elders of the community are leading that. The cultural context is absolutely certain, and there's no one size fits all in any way, shape, or form. But I think that we need to keep giving voice to people. We need to keep listening. And we're often in sticky waters. We always have to be mindful about who's not in the dialogue, who hasn't been represented. And I think that the conversations about the UNESCO process that Milena raised and Mike has raised highlight that process. I think, though, that we batter ourselves a lot as a cultural sector. I think we whip ourselves a lot because we have to remember that UNESCO is a highly bureaucratical body, and it's the first time that they are attempting this process of participatory dialogue. I think that should be applauded. We should be mindful of the gaps and the problems, and we should try to address those. And it's so nice to see people like Mike trying to address those issues and look for new solutions. What can I say more? Dialogue is important, listening, having those voices expressed. I think it's important, but it's also the astute way forward. You know, with more public participation in the conversation on where their tax money's going, or how their resources are distributed, or who's involved, you know, you have to have those dialogues. So I applaud this initiative, and thank you very much for inviting us, and I hope we've been able to contribute in some way. Thank you.
Basically, in spite of all misunderstanding about the word participation or participatory, we are in fact one same community of practice from what it was, Leuven to Čakovec, from Brazil to Zambia, and so on. And I think we, however, understood each other very well. What I wanted to say, yes, we are community of practice in a learning process. And during these 3 days, I think it was not only that we mutually learned from each other, we also produced some new issues. We created some new agendas, or at least posed some new questions, fighting for common good, for commons, for social justice, for transparency, for critical thinking in this age of learning skills. We were constantly fighting for more other types of learning, to really raise capacities, to come back to this issue, to participate in different sorts of decision-making processes. We don't need skills. We really need critical knowledge and analytical skills and conceptual skills and so on, but not to forget, sense of solidarity. And this word was far more mentioned here than on some other conference that I am participating, even fair collaboration, cooperation, and so on. So I would just conclude with the words that we need more research and more encounters about all these policies, practices, and theories of participation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your kind words. It was really wonderful to have all these ladies in the whole process of preparation and implementation of the conference. So, are you tired? A little bit. Okay, so you're not? I prepared 30 pages, so I will start to read if you are not so tired. Huh? Okay, so this conference comes to its end after 3 really intensive and dynamic days, during which we try to examine the question of a participatory agenda in culture. We wanted to create space, physical and discursive one, for discussion and sharing your experiences. I have to close the conference, obviously, and I suppose to say something very motivational, but probably I will not. But it was really spectacular days we created together. Great talks, great discussion, great comments. Great friends, great colleagues gather in this place 3 days. Over the last 3 days, over 100 participants from over 30 countries have come together for the first time as a community to explore key social and political dynamics that influence transparency and openness of democratic institutions, as well to provide some understanding of our increasingly challenging and mediated world in which we live and work, and give critical reflection on changes and transition amplified by global fluidity and instability of social interaction, how it influenced our societies, and what kind of resilience do we need. The conference looked beyond neoliberal governance, gave us some explanation why are we looking beyond traditional democratic institutions, and explored other possibilities of governance. Observed that citizens today do not need traditional bureaucratic structure to pursue their interests, since they are looking for more different influence on various processes, creation, planning, production, and especially in policy and decision-making process. Voting in political election is not a sufficient mechanism for affirmation of democratic cultural rights and citizenship. We explored how this dynamic influenced our society, art's value, and what kind of the grassroots reactions, bottom-up initiatives, and collective artistic and citizens' actions developed around the globe as a reaction to the neoliberal condition. The conference also explored the emergence of original forms of democratic participation and institutional innovation, and tried to understand the links among participants, citizenship, and democracy, as well as to explain the role of participation in democracy. The conference gave an overview of our contemporary context and the shifting dynamics of the liberal democratic system, and outlined the imperatives of collaboration, cooperation, and self-organization in the profit and civil sector, cultural institutions, state agencies, and so on. As many of you stressed, the notion of participation in our contemporary context is a new opium for people. We also underline the fact that the imperative to collaborate originates in the neoliberal tendency, and underlined this instrumentalization of participation, analyzed the sphere of influence in which participation operates in all sorts of areas. Many of you gave critical approach to the phenomenon of participation. But we also observed an alternative form of participation. We observed co-creation, co-governance as an utopian potential beyond neoliberal governance, looking how concepts of collaboration, participation, and self-organization promise a renewed democratization in the institutional arena. We approach the social and institutional conditions that make civic participation most effective and present some of new forms of participation that are being developed bottom-up, but also top-down. As many of our speakers have confirmed in their talks, now it is time to explore and implement participatory mechanism. This conference would not be possible with so many people that deserve to be thanked, and it is a really long list. Thank you to Kultura Nova Board of Directors that support me and my team to develop and implement, produce this conference, and also to the conference scientific committee. Thank you all our partners, Rijeka 2020, European Cultural Foundation, Network IFACCA, but also donors, UNESCO International Fund for Cultural Diversity, as well as Central European Initiatives, and all our sponsors. The conference program was also developed in a cooperative manner, and many people generously shared ideas and contributed to it in various ways. My special thanks goes to Ana Žuvela. Where is Ana? Who was really able to discuss with me almost every day all the steps in this endeavor. There were also other colleagues who shared ideas and thoughts about the conference program. Olga Alekseva, Cveta Andreeva, Jordi Balta, Milena Dragićević Šešić, Nancy Duxbury, Pedro Afonso Ivo Franco, Alessandra Gariboldi, Petar Milat, Davor Mišković, Tomislav Medak, Magdalena Moreno Mujica, Mirko Petrić, Levente Poljak, Goran Sergij Pristaš, and Jap Šafur. Thank you all. But nothing of this would be possible without my colleague Tamara Zameli. I don't know where is she. She has undertaken a tireless effort to gather all of us and to coordinate all activities within the conference production. She did really an amazing job and managed the entire conference with our team involved in the conference production. Diana, Ines, Petra, Antun, Mirela, Hrvoje, Marko, thank you all. And of course, this conference would not be possible without your commitment. Thank you for sharing your time, knowledge, and expertise with us, and thank you for participating in this event. I hope you learned something new, something that you didn't know before you came here, and I hope you find something which you could challenge you in your thinking beyond your imagination and common expectation. We had 3 days. How we will use it that, how we can take theory and the realities and move forward. We were having this video of conference and it will be put on the conference website. Use it. Keep talking, keep working, keep doing together. Keep the conversation and actions going. Thanks for being here. And have a safe trip home and enjoy your dancing dinner at Molecula. Thank you.